The reason why this is my number one marketing strategy is it's by far the most overlooked. I have yet to walk into a company that has a very proactive strategy with what we're going to talk about today. And also, it's the most profitable by far of all the marketing strategies. So, if you have no money for marketing today, this is the first thing that you would choose to start with. All right. The reason for that and why that is so our ongoing chase for new names, new leads, new logos. In order for us to grow, everything has to be new. And so show you some stats on this. So 44% of companies focus on customer acquisition, while only 18% focus on customer retention, which is a little bit backwards, right? Some other crazy stats on this. So getting a new customer 5 times as expensive as retaining an existing customer. And I've heard this is as high as 25 times more expensive, which is it's a big number. The chance of selling to a new prospect is between 5 and 20% on average, while selling to a customer, 60 to 70%, that you're upselling, cross-selling, whatever it may be. And what the result of this is, if you are selling to new customers, actively doing this, so increasing customer retention, basically, by just 5%, increase profits by 25 to 95%. And that's for the whole company, increasing those profits. It's unbelievable, really. But what is customer marketing? Because everybody has a different definition for what this means. And here's mine it's in 3 parts. One is actually retaining your customers. So, and that's the most profitable thing that you can do. So if you don't lose new customers, you don't have to replace them with something that costs, 5 to 20 times as much to replace them. And then, of course, upselling, which you have a very high probability of upselling versus getting a new customer. And then generating referrals from your customer. By far the best leads you'll ever get there, right? Let's talk first about that first bucket, customer retention. So here's a whole long laundry list, just a few things actually, of things that you do to retain customers. And there's a lot more, but renewal campaigns, especially if you're a product company, of course. Now, if you're a services company, it's a little bit different. But the services begin and end sometimes, if it's a project or whatever. So having some sort of campaign to renew, or knowing when's the right time to talk to them about renewing, going to a different project, whatever it may be. And then community development. And this seems to be a bigger one than anything else, because especially for product companies, building a community of people who can share ideas about how they're using that product, what features they're using. Whenever I'm a part of a community like this, I'm always just so surprised to hear somebody say, I'm using this product to do this. And somebody else says, really, I've never even tried that before. And they tell them how to do that. And before you know it, they're using a higher percentage of your product, which is the key, right? Loyalty programs. So loyalty programs, when you think of loyalty programs, you think of more B2C marketing, where you're marketing a credit card or cell service or something like that. But it has a really big place also in B2B marketing, because it can be anything from, obviously, discounts we think of first as a loyalty. Longer you've been here, better pricing you get and things like that. But it could be upgraded service. It could be something that only they have access, sort of VIP access to a certain type of product or something like that, or additional resources or whatever it may be. But still an important thing. The big one in my mind is product education. Again, this is for product companies. This is huge, because I heard a statistic that somewhere for people using a software program, they're using only about 5 to 10% of the functionality of that. I can't remember where I heard that from. I think it was a Microsoft Excel thing or a Word thing or something like that, which is amazing when you think about it, because people are only using 5 to 10% of your product, and you design, put so much effort into all of this great functionality. They're really probably not going to be customers for very much longer. And so knowing this and educating them, and of course, it all starts with customer onboarding. That's the most important part, so that you can get them up quickly. But educating them through the process and giving them resources they need is critical, of course, to retention. And here's another thing that's, you don't think about it as being critical to retention, but NPS surveys. I think a lot of you might be familiar with what this is, because I believe 2/3 of all US companies are using NPS surveys on a regular basis. And if you're not familiar with what this is, basically a survey that you send it out regularly, maybe twice a year or so. That's really, I think, kind of the sweet spot when you should be sending them out. You send it out and you ask them, would you recommend our product to someone else? And there's a couple of other questions too, but that's an important question. And the higher the score that they give you on that, whether they would recommend you, the more likely they are a happy customer. And so that's a way to judge. If they give you a 10 or a 9, then on that 0 to 10 scale, then they're a happy customer. If it's below that, they're not happy. And this, researchers have found that this is pretty much the #1 thing to ask a customer to find out if they're truly happy with your product, whether they're going to recommend you or not. And the important thing here, and why we bring it up for customer retention, is a lot of times you're really not going to know how happy your customer is just through day-to-day activity. Most customers are going to leave you quietly. There are, of course, the loud, obnoxious customers who are complaining all the time and things like that. Usually they're the ones that are going to stick around because they're complaining because it's important to them to get it right. It's the ones who are not complaining that you have to worry about. And so whether they recommend you is extremely important. And that kind of brings us on to the next bucket, which is customer referrals. So going back to, the NPS score previously, if you know they're unhappy, then you can take action on that. And usually it's like a red herring, well, not a red herring, a canary in a coal mine, right? It's a pre-indicator of whether you're going to lose that customer or not. So the same thing applies for customer referrals, getting customer referrals and knowing when to ask for customer referrals. That's the important part here. Because if a customer is happy, you ask for referrals. If the customer is not happy, you don't ask for referrals. It's that simple. And the thing is all your customers throughout your entire customer life cycle, they will go back and forth between happy, unhappy. Some will never be unhappy, but they'll go back and forth between whether they would give you a referral or not. And so it's important to know when the right time is. So if they say they're really happy, that's the right time. It's also important as far as for referrals go, that there's 2 different types of referrals, really in broad buckets. There's an external referral where somebody recommends somebody at another company who's similar size company or somebody they know who they also need this product, they also need this service. But there's also the internal as well. So it's the internal being somebody at your company, a different division, different group, different department, whatever it may be. And I've seen some amazing things happen in this area to where one of our salespeople sold into a really big software company into one group of that software company. Within 2 years, they had sold into 17 different groups within that company, and it was 10 times the revenue. And it was that, what you might call that land and expand strategy, which we'll talk about a little bit in a minute. But extremely important to get those internal and external ones. But the biggest thing, the biggest roadblock to getting referrals is just not asking. And for some reason, we as humans have a hard time asking for a referral, for somebody to recommend us somebody or tell us who could use that service or who could use that product, who would benefit from it. It's just not asked very much. And what I found through experience on this is the only way to get that thing asked, that question asked, is there needs to be incentives, at least to get them started. Of course, there needs to be education on how to ask, when to ask, things like that. But incentives for your team and sometimes for your customers. Although I kind of go back and forth. For some customers, it's not a good idea because some companies just can't take any kind of incentives. It could be like a discount on the product, of course, or some sort of upgraded service or something like that. But very few really feel good about taking cash or prizes. So I kind of avoid that. Sometimes, though, donating charity is the next best thing. And that's actually a win-win for both sides. And so that's an option as well. So let's look at the third bucket, is upselling. And let's talk about really different types of upselling. So you've got upselling, which is trying to get somebody to buy more of the same product they're already buying from you, a bigger project that's the same project. And cross-selling, of course, is selling different types of products that are related somehow. But then you've got account expansion, which is more of a referral thing, right? What we talked about before, it's selling to different people or different units, departments within that organization. Some call this the land and expand strategy, where their goal is to first, let's get a new customer in small project or a small purchase, and then let's expand out from them once they see how great our product is. Now, exclusive offers are another big one too. This can be a lot of different things. And I tell you, the thing that annoys me more than anything is when you're a customer and new customers are getting discounts that you're not getting. It's kind of like being a Verizon customer. I see all these discount offers out there for new customers only. And it kind of makes you mad, when you're a 20-year Verizon customer. And it's same in B2B. Of course, the exclusive offers just for your customers are a wonderful thing. The challenge here, though, what I've found in upselling is actually finding the opportunities in the first place to upsell. And I'll tell you, if a salesperson hears about an opportunity, they have quite the radar, right, to detect opportunities, and they run with it as soon as they see opportunities. What I found is other people who are on the front lines with customers, like account managers, customer success people, customer satisfaction support, things like that, they might hear an opportunity and say, oh, we should be able to do that for them, but they don't escalate it necessarily, or they don't take it to a salesperson, or they don't sell it themselves. So it's extremely important to get people really good at recognizing not just opportunities, but the importance of recognizing an opportunity and how that's the lifeblood of the company, is growing within an account. So that's a lot of things. I wanted to kind of boil it down into a few steps that you can take today. Number one, by far, is you've got to have some sort of net promoter score, some sort of survey that's going out about this on a regular basis, because that feeds into all the different things that I just talked about. It tells you when the right time to upsell is, when the right time to get referrals, and a lot of other different things. The second one, product education, especially obviously for product companies, that having an educated customer means you're going to have a customer that sticks around almost in every category. Uneducated customers don't stick around. And having the resources that go with that too. And then the third thing I would do, and these things are relatively quick, but the third thing I would do, have to have incentives for referrals. It just doesn't happen without that, even for salespeople. But incentives for other people on your team to get referrals, and also incentives for identifying opportunities, which is fairly the same thing. Well, the last thing I'll leave you with is this key takeaway. You just, if you've heard everything I've said today, but just remember, when you're trying to sell this internally, customer marketing is only 5 to 20% of the cost of getting new customers. Of course, it's not as scalable as getting new customers, but who has $1 million, $2 million, $3 million to grow their business really fast through getting new customer acquisition versus doing things that cost very little money? And that's why you see the 5 to 20% cost, and growing customers and keeping customers, and who are going to be happier being with you and tell other people great things about you.